So the previous video, we upload our chapter 1 example 1.cpp file. So that's further to talk about what's that's in that program. So on the other hand, what a program made of. For most programming language, the common element in each programming language, we have the keywords. The keyword, for example, C in, C out, or return. So those keywords is specific, defined in the programming language. Or the programmer defined identifier. So this one is, earlier, did you remember we say we got a user input for the hourly rate. So we need to create a variable for that hourly rate so we can store the data. So maybe we just call them it's hours. So hours actually is a user defined or programmer defined identifier. So then we need to multiply hours times the hourly rate. So the times, that's the multiplication. We call that operator. Then we have some punctuation. For example, if we want to display the information, say, please enter your hourly rate. So that's double quote for the string that we say that's a special punctuation. And also we have other syntax. So many different programming language, they all have those components, but they may have different kind of syntax or different keywords. Okay, so earlier I showed you in the previous video to run the C++ program on different IDE. I didn't using the Cloud9 because Cloud9 actually is very intuitive. You just need to upload the local file. You can run that. So that's why I only show you the screenshot. So the screenshot just say, for example, from the Cloud9, you have COMSC110. So you upload the example 1.cpp file. So then you see here, you can open that. So then you can run the console will underneath the output. Okay, so then that's continue. That's our example 1. We see in detail what this source file look like. So then I can show you many things. So the first thing you see here, we have a main function. So the function we will talk about more in detail. But now from line 8, 9, and 26 and 25, I just want you to remember the syntax like that. So the detail I will tell you more in the further in the following future lecture. But here you just need to remember, just write like this. So this int main, we call the int is the integer. So main is the function name with the parentheses make the function. So when we say, remember earlier we say the punctuation or syntax, right? So here the braces, that means inside the braces we have one code block. So or here in the function, that's the inside function content. So I want you to always use the int space main braces, then you return 0. So I will talk about in the future what the return 0 mean. But this one you see int, that's the data type. Return, that's the keyword. So you can see here, according to your IDE, they have the keyword usually in different color. So here we can see actually using namespace, int, double, return. They are all keywords in C++. So continue, right? So let's talk about double. Int is integer. What means integer? No decimal. So double, that's still is the number. But this kind of number, we want to have the number with decimal. So then you see here, we create 3 variables to store the value. Hours represent the hourly, how many hours user work. Rate represent the hourly rate. So later, hours times rate will equal to the pay. So then later we will have the pay. So that's why usually in C++, we define the variable you need at the beginning. So when you define a variable, you need to have their data type. So then hours, rate, and the pay, that's we say the user defined identifier. So you can think about this one kind of like in math. you have X, Y represent different value. So then you see, then we separate with comma. So then each statement you finish, you have semicolon. So then remember, we said we want to display the user how many hours you work, right? Right. So this is the message you want to display. In C++, the message you want to display, you put the double quote. So we know the whole thing is a string. So then we will introduce you more in detail. But here we say the cout, that means you want to display the information to the screen. So we do the cout. So that's an object name. Then space. So here the less than less, that's an operator. We call that the string insertion operator. They insert this whole string into the cout output string object. So then you see here, in order to use the cout, that's a library we need. So that's why we need to using the pound sign include the angle bracket IO string. So this one is we call the C++ library. Where we'll talk about more in detail about the IO string in the next video. But here just know, here the cout is for the output to the string. What you want to output, then you do the insertion to the output. So then you see here, so that's why, did you remember earlier you run the program, you see how many hours did you work? Right, so then later user will enter 30 hours, 30, right? So in order to read the 30, right, that's why earlier we defined this variable. We want to save that 30 into the hours. So that's why we're using another object name called cin. Cin means I read from the keyboard. Then I insert into the variable. Okay? So here the double backslash, actually we say that's a comment. So the comments actually is not really the program will run. It's just for the human reading. So from line 12 to 14, after you get that, don't you think 16 and 18 is very similar? Right. I print again to the screen. I read to the user input about your pay rate. So now, since we have hours, we have rate, so then we multiply. The difference in C++ is we calculate, then we assign to the variable pay, right? You need to be the pay equal like this. So the value you want to assign always on the left-hand side from your equal operator. The calculation is on the right because they will assign the value on the right to the left. So after we have the value to display the pay, so we display. So again, you see out, you have earned that much money, right? But I also want to display the pay, right? So then you have insertion operator for the string. Continue with another insertion for the pay. So then at the end, again, this ENDL, that's mean end of line. That's just make a new line at the end of your pay. Okay, so I hope this explanation can help you a little bit. But right, it's very quickly I want to put in the video. So that's why I talk very fast. So you can pause any time and think about that. And also one thing is, I want you to discuss with your classmates. This one actually in the lab exercise, you already discussed with your classmate. And also you try to read this one first. So now you check, are they similar as what you guess what we have? So afterward now, right, we can go through that. So that's why you see, remember our keyword earlier. So then all the different color is the keyword we have. So they have all the keyword actually have the special meaning in different programming language. Of course, we're using for the C++ for this class. So then you can go over the rest of the slides so you can know that's the keyword. Then we talk about program defined identifier, right? So remember earlier we have the double, hours, rate, and the pay. So those names are made by the programmer. They are not part of the default C++ language. So you use to present various things. So that's the variable. So variable about the memory location, we will talk about more in detail. Okay. So the operator, earlier we talked about multiplication. So then if you want to do the addition, you can do the plus sign, minus sign, divide sign. So then the other operator we see is, remember we have pay equal to hours times rate. So that's what we call assignment operator. And also in our example 1, did you remember you have string insertion and string extraction? So that's all the operator you have. Then the punctuation. So the punctuation actually is character that mark the end of the statement or to separate item. So we have the colon and the semicolon. So you see each variable you need to use in the comma to separate that. Each statement we end with the semicolon. Syntax. Syntax is the rule of the grammar that must be followed when writing a program. Control the use of the keyword, operator, programming defined symbol, and punctuation. So kind of the whole thing, how we write our main function, that's the syntax. So that's why you will see here, we follow the algorithm we have. We define the variable first. We get the user input. We calculate, then we display the result. So in the other hand, in the example, you can see actually we contain input, processing, and output. The first thing you see, input data, get input data. So did you remember we get the user input from the keyboard to get hourly rate and how many hours we read. So in the future, we will show you your input also can get from the files. So after we get the user input for the hours and the rate, we save that in that variable. So then we multiply to get the pay. So that's processing the input data. Then we display the total pay on the screen. So sometimes you can send into the screen, so that's in our example. So then in this class, later we will show you, you also can write to the file. Okay, so for example 1, can you recognize the code statement? Where is the input? Where is the processing? What is the output? Actually, we have couple places we do the output. So that's our lecture for the example, chapter 1. So in this handout, of course, we have 2 more sections, the programming processing and the procedure and object-oriented program. So this one actually, instead, I will talk about in the lecture. So how about I want you to read by yourself to understand, to see the machine language and the high-level language and the low-level language. And sometimes you see, you heard the C++ now. Sometimes you heard about Java, you heard about C#, Python. So then actually they are all the one kind of programming language. So then we have some information here. You don't need to know all of them. You just need to read through that to know what they are. Yeah, so then actually this one will already show you. You see you have your source file for your C++. So then actually you need to compile and run. So that's the step how you will make your source file become the execution file. So then I will let you to read through the rest of the PowerPoint file. So then let me know if you have any question before you moving forward to our assignment 1.